Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Happening this evening, President Trump at a state dinner in the UK with the King and the Prime Minister. The royal family putting on all the pomp and pageantry.
Kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's irreplaceable and unbreakable.
I cannot help but wonder what our forebears from 1776 would make of this friendship today.
You don't see that every day, huh? The King there on camera. But did the president's trip get overshadowed by the Epstein files? We'll explain. Also tonight, your money. The Federal Reserve cutting interest rates for the first time this year. Why the new focus suddenly isn't all about inflation, rather the job market. What the country's top money man is saying now, plus turning social. Why leaders of some of the biggest social media platforms are set to be called up to Congress after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What the FBI Director Kash Patel told lawmakers as well. And on patrol. The Department of Homeland Security ramping up its blitz on ICE arrests in Chicago as the Vice President J.D. Vance says today where he might like to see the National Guard potentially head next. But first tonight here from The Hill, would you look at that? Extravagance abroad and cuts here at home. President Trump and the First Lady attending a state dinner in London tonight. King Charles, the president, both speaking at that event. The Queen Camilla there as well, Prince William, Kate, they were all there. This kind of looked straight out of Netflix, to be honest. The Secretary of State in attendance, too, the Treasury Secretary, you name it. 160 guests joined for the three-course dinner that capped off a day of spectacle. King Charles and the royal family hosting the first family here from the United States with an arrival ceremony at Windsor Castle, kicking off a day that included marching bands and a Royal Air Force flyover. Back here at home, you can say the president got something that he's been pushing for months. The Federal Reserve announcing that it would cut rates, interest rates, by a quarter point. The first cut this year. Actually was a bit of a muted response on the corner of Wall and Broad. Not sort of surprising because markets had already been pushing this move, pricing this move in for months. But the Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell saying today that the job market helped drive the rate cut decision.
We were looking at 150,000 jobs a month at the time of the last meeting. And now we see the revisions and we see the new numbers. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on payroll job creation, but it's just one of the things that suggests that the labor market is really cooling off.
It was interesting because we've heard inflation nonstop. Today from Powell, though, it was talks about the job market. More talks about jobs than inflation. It comes after several months of this here. Weak job growth, including the month of June, in which we learned that the economy actually lost jobs in this country. It also comes as prices are starting to rise across America. The Consumer Price Index, which tracks inflation, moving up slightly since April. You can see it here. Obviously, there's the COVID and the drop since COVID, but just the little pickup here at the tail end there. Taking all of this in as we start The Hill. With me now is the Republican senator from the state of Nebraska, Deb Fischer, with us tonight here on The Hill. Senator, I appreciate the time. Thanks for being with us tonight. Two big stories that I want to get to. Obviously, for folks at home, their money and the interest rate cut that we learned of today. But I want to start off with that scene that we saw abroad tonight, as elaborate as it was. Looked like a reality TV show, quite honestly. What's the significance of it?
Well, I think it's always important that the United States has close partnerships and close allies. We have a special relationship with the UK, and it was wonderful to see the President and the First Lady there, with the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of State, with the government and the royal family of the UK. It's a relationship we need to always take care of. We work together. We have many of the same values.
So if the president hadn't been there, he probably, I would suspect, Senator, would have either had an on-camera event here at home or been pounding away on Truth Social. railing at Jay Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, as the president has widely criticized the Fed chair, saying in the president's word that he is too late on cutting interest rates. Do you think the president got what he wanted today on that front?
Well, we've seen the rates cut today. That's a step in the right direction. It's bringing much needed relief, I think, to the American people, and it's going to be welcome news to American families who want to buy a home or buy a car. It's going to be welcome news to small business owners who are going to see those rates go down and be able to expand their business, invest in the future, and hire more people. So it's good news. I'm glad to see it.
What are you hearing back at home on the tariff front? Because we see prices going up. The inflation number is at around 3%. We heard Jay Powell today still very concerned about that. What are you hearing at home?
You know, Nebraska is an ag state. That's the biggest economic engine of our economy, and people in agriculture always get a little nervous when you hear about tariffs. We want to be able to expand markets and grow our exports. So we're looking forward to some good trade deals with the president. We want to see those be forthcoming, learn the details of them. We want to make sure that our manufacturing as well is being considered here when we look at the tariffs. It's a hard situation. A lot of times in the United States, when we're trying to sell our products, for example, we're looking at tariffs on ethanol in Brazil that are about 18%. Yet Brazilian ethanol coming into the United States, it comes in duty-free. We see meat coming in from Australia, about $29 billion a year. And when we look at what we sell to them, that's zero. So there's a number of issues out there with tariffs, with some non-tariffs, problems that happen as well, that these nations retaliate on us on agriculture. So we're hopeful that especially with cutting these interest rates, that's going to help businesses grow, create jobs, but we want to make sure we also have the markets.
Here was Jay Powell today on tariffs. I want to leave with this and get your reaction on the other side.
What seems to be happening is that the tariffs are mostly not being paid by exporters, mostly being paid by really the companies that sit between the exporter and the consumer. So if you buy something and you sell it through retail or you use it to make a product, you're probably taking a lot of those costs on and not able to pass it fully along to the consumer yet.
I found that to be sort of maybe where companies are at the moment right now, Senator. Is this tariff policy from the president worth it? Is it working?
You know, I think we have to give it time, and we're going to see with this rate cut, again, businesses be able to expand, businesses be able to hire. Those folks then are going to be able to also make purchases. But what we're looking at is a good future here, I think, in what we're going to be able to have. But as I said, we want to make sure that we have markets. And the president needs to get some information out there on the good trade deals that he's making. People want to hear some positive news. We want to know that the markets are coming. We want to know that we're going to be able to sell ag products. We're going to want to know that our manufacturers are going to be able to continue to manufacture in the state of Nebraska. Those are things that we have to continue to push for, work with the administration on, and work with the administration to make sure that it all can happen.
Deb Fischer is the Republican, one of them, out there in the state of Nebraska with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for the time, Senator. Hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Today's much anticipated rate cut supported by all but one member of the Federal Open Markets Committee, rather. That's the group that sets the interest rates for the Fed. Stephen Myron, who, by the way, is still kind of technically, I guess he took a leave of absence, though, an economic advisor to President Trump, just confirmed by the Fed board the other day. He wanted a half-point cut. He dissented from the decision to lower interest rates 0.25%. Chris Stirewalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. My man with me here now. Did Trump get what he wanted today?
No, I mean, he didn't get what he wanted in the sense that, well, maybe I should better say.
Okay.
I don't know what Donald Trump thinks that rate cuts do, right?
What do you mean?
So rate cuts can, and I should be very careful because bourbon means business, and I don't want to.
Somewhat business.
I don't want to get into quicksand here, but I will just say that investors love rate cuts because it's the only predictable thing. It's one of the last predictable things that markets are like, rate cut, that means good, that means buy, push stocks up. This one was already priced in, right? Because the markets had been expecting it for so long. In terms of what the knock-on consequences, look, we have credit scores in America are declining at the fastest rate. They saw the sharpest decline that they have since the Great Recession in 2009. Inflation is up, job market is soft. We have all of these worrisome things. Rate cuts are one of the only things that you can do to stave off or shorten a recession, but you still don't want to have a recession.
Yeah.
Right. A recession is still bad.
So I thought there was a moment today from Jay Powell where I was like, whoa, I can't believe he just said that. Roll it real quick if we can.
It's not a bad economy or anything like that. There are no risk-free paths now. It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So we have to keep our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment.
That was basically the shoulder shrug emoji from the Fed chair, like, there's like rising inflation and jobs are coming down and like, I don't know what to do, but we're trying to do our best.
Well, then that's the thing, is that the central bank is not all powerful. We have a central bank so that we can keep currency liquidity. The point of a central bank is so that when you have a panic, like the United States used to have back in the late 19th century, or at the Great Depression, when you have a panic, the monetary supply doesn't seize up and it doesn't turn into a total catastrophe. The Federal Reserve can make sure that the dollars keep flowing and that things are okay. And all of that is good. But it's not in charge of the economy. The Federal Reserve, our rates are at functionally, their rates are at functionally zero anyway. So you can cut by a quarter, you can cut by a half, but it's not like the Federal Reserve is what's making the money so expensive.
They're wrapping me, but tee up real quick the Trump video at that state dinner there tonight, because it was a thing, Chris. You don't really see this often. The president, the state dinner. I don't know if you've ever worn one of those those suits, but I don't know. I was sitting there watching it. I'm like, it's kind of remarkable to see this.
From the Al Smith dinner to...
That's the only time I've worn it.
Oh, you did it for the Al Smith dinner?
I did it, and my kids laughed at me, so it was worth it.
I think you would look good in evening clothes and white tie. I think you'd probably be very good. You will be unsurprised to know that I have, yes, worn white tie. Yes, quite so.
But what do you make of that scene that we saw?
I think it's a different world, baby.
Indeed it is. We'll leave it there. Chris Stirewalt, catch you later in the show. Thank you, sir. All right, still to come. Other side of the break. The Charlie Kirk investigation. I'm gonna show you who was just called to testify up on Capitol Hill by a very powerful committee. Also a NewsNation exclusive tonight, our Allie Bradley on a ride-along with ICE. We are live in Chicago with the protests and the arrest, plus this.
Is the answer yes or no to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped?
The Cash Clash, Part 2. Up on the Hill today. I'm Blake Berman. We thank you for being with us tonight. We're back on the other side, 4 minutes away. Go back here to the Hill on NewsNation as federal and local investigators work to determine the very latest as they know it in last week's assassination of Charlie Kirk. New information tonight on the suspect, Tyler Robinson, and his online messages. The FBI Director Kash Patel appearing before the House Judiciary Committee today. The director saying his agency is looking into those online messages.
I can only speak to the FBI's investigation, and our investigation is ongoing, and we are interviewing any of those individuals involved in that chat and other individuals in the area.
The CEOs from online platforms Discord, Reddit, Twitch, and Steam now being invited, one way to put it, to appear before the House Oversight Committee next month to testify about the radicalization of online forum users. With me now, NewsNation political contributor and host of the Sean Spicer Show podcast, Sean Spicer, and co-host of The Hills Rising, Lindsey Granger. Hello to you both. Thanks for being here. Nice to have you in.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you and actually Gavin Newsom, because you recently appeared on Gavin Newsom's podcast.
Thank you.
Just the other day. Gavin Newsom said, Lindsey, that it was a mistake that he got ridiculed from the left for having Charlie Kirk on. Here's what he said, and then I want to pick it up.
The response from my party was rather mixed or muted. And I thought that was a mistake. I think my party has not invested as much energy as they should in this space that we're highlighting today.
You were just with the governor the other day. What do you make of those comments?
He's right. I mean, look, two things. One, if you look at the nut of what Charlie Kirk did, it was to invite discussion in a civil way. You can disagree with everything that Charlie Kirk said. The bottom line is he went to places that conservatives are not welcome, to college campuses, and had discussions and welcomed them. And again, you might not agree with them. Some of the students might not agree with them. But he always had a civil debate with them and a discussion of them. Gavin Newsom, as much as I disagree with him, at least is trying to have that discussion. And I think that when we stop having that discussion, this is what Charlie always said, when you stop having that discussion, that's when violence becomes the answer for so many people. And that's unfortunate. If we can't have a discussion, and lastly, I'll just say this. For those of us on the right, this is very deep and this is decades long. We canceled my college speaker in the early 1990s because people didn't like what he had stood for. If we simply don't believe that people on the right have a right to exist, then we don't have a country. And that's what we have dealt with. We've been canceled, censored, pushed out, told that we're not, that by our mere beliefs, we are unacceptable to a certain degree of society. That's wrong.
Well, Gavin Newsom obviously has campaign dreams in mind for the presidency. Sure. So it's smart of him to have dialogue across the aisle. So I think that's a lot of strategy involved in what he's doing.
But do you think your party, I think the point that, no, I'm just saying, because you think it's smart, and I wonder, do you think that I think it's smart, but do you think you're the base that has to get elected thinks it's smart?
I think it's important to do because of the lack of the youth vote that supported the Democrats in the last election. So if you look at what happened to Kamala, she was completely disconnected, and so was Joe Biden, from youth voters. And what I saw Charlie Kirk do, love him or hate him, is from 18 years old to 31, galvanize that vote that people have been grappling after. I mean, rock the vote, vote or die, all these MTV missions since I was a kid trying to get these young voters to do anything, and he was able to get one part of the party.
I love that analysis.
I
may write that down, Lindsey.
Turned 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God. And they used to do it with celebrities, and Kamala tried that tactic again, and that doesn't work anymore.
Speaking of the youth, here's the simplest way to put this. If you have a grandchild or a kid, let's just say like over 10 years old, chances are they know about or are on Reddit, Discord, or Twitch. Yeah. And now the House Oversight Committee has come out and said, we want these CEOs to come up here and testify. And here's part of the reason why I found this fascinating. We've gone from Mark Zuckerberg and big tech a decade ago and hauling them up, now to these companies, Sean and Lindsey, and I wonder where that leads to next in the discussion of all of this.
I think one area that there should be bipartisan agreement is the threat that these companies, these big tech companies, pose to the next generation of America. The discussions that are happening on them, the best parent in the world can't always monitor everything. And the rabbit holes that these kids go down, whether it's beauty and weight or some of these other things that they're seeing, are just unacceptable. And I think there does need to be an accountability. And hopefully it's something that both parties can come to an agreement on how to address this.
I think with government overreach being the pillar of the Republican Party and trying to avoid that, we can't really have a conversation about how to monitor these social media apps, because every time it's on the table, it's completely blocked from any type of real legislation going through. But what we see is that whether it's ChatGPT and people dying because of the lack of advice that's being given in the wrong way because it's not a therapist, or when we look at Discord and people sharing actual information that could lead to catching a killer before they kill. I think we have to have places and loopholes where we don't allow government oversight, or not wanting it, to not stop.
He's taking the conservative position.
I got to jump in here because we're learning of a horrible scene that's unfolding in the state of Pennsylvania. There's a press conference ongoing right now. What we know at this hour, 5 people are shot. We believe that law enforcement are involved in this. The Attorney General, the FBI Director have both made comments on this. The Governor of the state of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, on scene. We listen live in the state of Pennsylvania as it appears that there is a law enforcement shooting in that state.
Into this matter. Lastly, I would simply ask to the community here in York County and beyond, all across Pennsylvania and all across our nation, if you could keep the families that were touched by this tragedy today in your thoughts and prayers. Please give them a solemn thought. And to the women and men who are working diligently right now to push this incident forward and the investigation forward and the aftermath that will have to be dealt with and persevered through, our hearts and prayers are with them. Thank you very much. I'll now turn it over to Governor Shapiro.
This is an absolutely tragic and devastating day for York County and for the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We grieve for the loss of life, for 3 precious souls who served this county, served this Commonwealth, and served this country. And we continue to pray for the full recovery of those who are dealing with their wounds. This, of course, is on the heels of just a few months ago when we lost another York County son, Officer Duarte, who again gave his life in the line of service. I had the opportunity with the Lieutenant Governor and with Senator Phillips Hill, Representative Grove, and your 3 county commissioners to spend some time with the families of those who have been impacted by this violence today. I think it's important for you to know that these families who are dealing with, they're grieving right now and they're suffering right now, took time to tell us how proud they are of their loved ones who put on a uniform to keep us safe. It's an extraordinary thing that these law enforcement families do. They support the individual who puts on the uniform and runs toward danger. They're there for them when they leave in the morning, and they pray throughout the day that they will come home at night. So I hope as this community comes together, as I know it knows how to do, and prays, that we think not just about those who wear the uniform, but those who stand behind and next to those who wear the uniform every day. These families are extraordinary, and I hope you'll join me in prayer for them. I had some time to spend with the law enforcement who are gathered here today, who ran here because they knew that their brothers in uniform were in danger or their lives were cut short. And I'll just share with you what I told them. The entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania respects them, and we have their backs. And we so appreciate the work that they do every single day when they go out to keep us safe, when they go out to protect our freedoms and our rights. This is something that, sadly, we only tend to share in times of tragedy. I think it is important that this Commonwealth knows that every day we appreciate those who put on the uniform and those who keep us safe. There are others here at WellSpan who wear different kind of uniforms. And I want to say thank you to the doctors, to the nurses, to the staff here at this extraordinarily wonderful healthcare institution that sadly has seen too much trauma. But thanks to their extraordinary talents and their dedication to their neighbors, they're able to help people get back up on their feet. That's what you did today for these 2 brave souls who put on a uniform to keep us safe. And so we appreciate those of you who don the white coat and the scrubs, those of you who support the work that they do. You truly are wonderful people, and we appreciate you very, very much. I want to let you know that Attorney General Pam Bondi reached out directly to me and shared with me that we have the full support of the federal government. I know, as Colonel Paris indicated before, he has spoken to the lead of the FBI here in this region. We so appreciate law enforcement at every level, and we, of course, appreciate our federal partners. General and I worked together when I was Attorney General here in Pennsylvania. She was the Attorney General in Florida. It meant a lot to me that she reached out to offer her support and her prayers for good people of Pennsylvania. Here's the last thing I want to say, and I'll turn it over to the Lieutenant Governor. This kind of violence isn't okay. We need to do better as a society. We need to help the people who think that picking up a gun, picking up a weapon is the answer to resolving disputes. We need to do better when it comes to mental health. We need to do better when it comes to looking out for those who are in need so we don't have to deal with tragedies like this. We got to do better as a society. I know everybody up here believes that, and everybody up here works hard to do that every day. I just think as a community, it's time for us to work hard to heal from this and to make sure that those whose lives were lost today, that something constructive can come from that in their memory that stops this kind of violence in the future, that protects those people that put on those uniforms for us, that makes it so these trauma surgeons don't have to patch this many people up. We got to do better as a society. I know we're all committed to doing that work. We've got to do even more. Now's the time for this community to come together and to do this important work. And so on behalf of a grateful Commonwealth, I say to those who wear the uniform of law enforcement, thank you. To those who wear the uniform of healthcare, thank you. To the elected leaders up here, thank you for the work that you have done and know you will do to keep our community safe. And to Colonel Paris and the entire team at the Pennsylvania State Police, I know you will have every resource you need to make sure that this investigation...
We've been listening to the governor there in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, a devastating day in that state. The governor announcing that 3 police officers have been killed, 2 others shot while on the job there in Pennsylvania. The details behind it at this point, we still don't know and will report on throughout the evening. We can tell you that the FBI, according to the Attorney General Pam Bondi, and ATF are on the scene there. There is a massive presence on the ground there in Pennsylvania as 3 police officers who just showed up to work today have been killed in the line of duty. 2 others injured, as we know at this hour. Our coverage continues here on NewsNation, other side of the break.
I want everyone.
Deployments that I talked about, now striking fear into our immigrant communities. We're facing a national campaign. This is my political opinion, and my apologies to anybody who may disagree with me, but it's a national campaign that is based on profound cruelty, intolerance, and ignorance.
The Illinois governor there, J.B. Pritzker, calling out the federal deployment of ICE agents to his state. Across Chicago, ICE agents carrying out operations, reportedly arresting hundreds of illegal immigrants so far. It comes as President Trump says Chicago will be the next city to see the National Guard troops, or at least certainly a surge there. You would think the president's immigration crackdown is centered solely around crime, but it might be reaching consequences into the economy as well. Listen here to the Fed chair, Jay Powell, earlier today, linking the stagnant labor market to immigration policy.
I would say if you're looking at why employment is doing what it's doing, that's much more about the change in immigration. So the supply of workers has obviously come way down. There's very little growth, if any, in the supply of workers. And at the same time, demand for workers has also come down quite sharply.
With me now, here on the Hill, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin. Tricia, thanks for being with us tonight once again here on the Hill. What would you say to Jay Powell there?
I would not depend on Jay Powell for immigration policy, and I think he doesn't have the facts with him on this one. 70% of those illegal aliens we've arrested have either criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. We are going after the murderers. We're going after the rapists, the child pedophiles. Those are people who should not be employed by the U.S. in general, A, because they're here illegally, but B, because they have heinous crimes that they have committed. So I will leave it to Jay Powell, not on immigration.
What about the workforce raids? I mean, part of his argument was, obviously he was talking about rising prices as well, but basically saying, look, the labor force is shrinking, and in part it has to do with immigration.
Well, we've had 2 million people who have exited the U.S., who have been in this country illegally in the last 240 days. But I will say, as far as worksite enforcement operations, we're finding a lot of labor trafficking there. There's been child exploitation there. There's people who are really exploiting these people and paying them lower wages, but also taking American jobs while they're at it. So I think that we have the facts on our side, and I don't know if Mr. Powell is really read in on the facts when it comes to the U.S. immigration policy.
You're from Ohio. Max Miller, a congressman, Republican, calling on Governor Mike DeWine to authorize the Ohio National Guard to Cleveland. Good idea?
You know what? I think that we have to look at all the facts on the ground, but President Trump has made clear, whether it be a red state, a blue state, or a purple state, he will go wherever we need to go to make sure that Americans are safe. Leaders have to step up and do their jobs, because there's too many great U.S. cities, whether it be Detroit, whether it be Chicago, whether it be Los Angeles, or whether it be Memphis, that they are riddled by crime. Their people cannot live free lives to build their families, to build their communities, and to build good businesses. So President Trump is stepping up where these leaders won't.
I want to ask you about, we just witnessed Josh Shapiro live, the governor there in Pennsylvania. We're starting to learn the facts as we know them, which are multiple police officers shot and killed in the line of duty today. You work for DHS. I don't know if you have, I don't believe you have up-to-date information on this as it's still unfolding, but I wonder what your thoughts are as you watch all of this, as we take a look live there in York County.
Homeland Security is certainly monitoring the situation, and Secretary Noem is monitoring the situation. And like you said, we don't want to speculate where the facts are still coming to light. But I think it's very important for Americans to realize DHS law enforcement is facing a 1,000% increase in assaults against them. You have members of the media, you have activists, you have politicians who are calling law enforcement the Gestapo, likening them to Nazis, calling them the secret police. These Holocaust allusions, and what it gives a permission slip to is these lunatics to take action, to take violence, and either harm somebody or kill someone. We have to turn the rhetoric down. This violence has to stop. And I'm praying for those law enforcement members and for their families today.
All right. Tricia McLaughlin with us tonight. Tricia, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Other side of the break. President Trump dines with the royal family at Windsor Castle. Back here in the States, I guess you could say it was the Cash Clash Part 2. In the UK this evening for a state visit. Would you look at that? Kind of looked like a scene out of Netflix, quite honestly. The president extended a royal welcome by King Charles at Windsor Castle, but along with all the pomp and circumstance, red carpets literally rolled out for the commander-in-chief. The president also had this ahead of his arrival, images of himself and Jeffrey Epstein projected onto Windsor Castle by British activists. And while all this was going on that side of the pond, back here, the FBI Director Kash Patel up on Capitol Hill for the second day in a row, being pressed today over his handling of the Epstein investigation.
It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times.
It's not. It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is not to engage in political innuendo so you can go out to the sticks and get your 20-second hit in your fundraising article.
Is the answer yes or no to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped?
And you talk about cover-ups, man.
Mr. Chairman,
you talk about cover-ups.
And I will take as much time as
Where were you during the Obama and Biden administrations when these so-called cover-ups were going on?
And we did not boost the microphones there, I promise you. Full panel here with me now. Sean Spicer back once again, NewsNation political contributor, host of the Sean Spicer Show podcast. Lindsey Granger, co-host of Rising on the Hill. Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And she is the national political reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. How about those titles for all y'all?
That's good.
Fantastic. That's the whole segment.
I need to add Hill. I got to add Hill somehow into my just to fill.
Here's what so Joe Khalil texted me today, Lindsay, and he says yesterday when Kash Patel was up in the Senate, for Democrats it was 15% Epstein, 50% FBI is politicized, 35% Charlie Kirk. Today it goes into the House. He says it was 85% Epstein. What's the calculus and thinking there?
Well, I think that you have to go home and remember that these representatives have to talk to the people in their districts that actually are concerned about Epstein. I mean, polls show that people have sympathy for those victims that were on Capitol Hill steps, sharing their plight with the world and hearing our president call it a hoax. And so when you are where the buck stops and also somebody who was speaking very forwardly about all these documents and files that will be released, you and Pam Bondi, speaking about those documents and then never came to fruition, and to kind of just throw the blame back on the person asking you a tough question. That's not what a leader does. And so people are looking for Kash Patel to give real answers because their constituents are asking for it, not just because they're on some witch hunt to randomly bring down Kash Patel.
When your side of the aisle sees Kash Patel pushing back that way, is that sort of, I don't know, comforting or what you want to see, or where are you tonight with this?
Well, I agree with Lindsay's analysis. I mean, these guys heard it a lot more than the senators do. So they're addressing that. One, on the style and the substance, I think we on the right are excited to see that level of pushback and back and forth with a guy like Swalwell. So that on the substance of it, look, I'm a big believer that I want more out on this. And I think a lot of the folks on my side of the aisle want more out this. I actually believe that the Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because I'm not so sure that the list, that if it ever comes out, I have a feeling it tilts a lot more in their direction than in our direction. So I am a big believer they should go all out on this. Give as much as they can, explain as much as they can. I would like to see him lean more into this, have Pam Bondi lean more into this, explain what's going on, what everything is, what they can release, what they can't, and why.
You know, I was sort of taken aback watching the hearing today and also the hearing before the Senate committee yesterday featuring Director Patel. We're less than a week out, or roughly a week out, from the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and we've heard over and over again from elected officials on Capitol Hill, officials across the country, to turn down the temperature. However, time and time again, after these hearings, you see both sides of the aisle trying to get a soundbite, trying to, tout themselves through these hearings, and that just sets, I think, a horrible example for Americans watching that. And we're less than a week out after this shooting.
And it's an example that has flowed for my entire vocational life in Washington, D.C. These hearings are useless, and they do more harm than they do good. We get theater instead of governance is the norm of what we're experiencing right now. Kash Patel's accusation was exactly right to Eric Swalwell. But you could say the same thing for Kash Patel, who's had a rotten run, right, on the Epstein stuff, and then on we've got the suspect, we don't have the suspect, had this bad time. So he gets to clean up by going in there and punching these people in the face. They get to clean up by punching him in the face. Nobody knows any more than when they went in. We're all a little dumber and we're all a little meaner for it.
I will say, Chris is right on the hearings. I mean, hearings are an utter waste of time. To tell a House member or a senator you have 5 minutes to question, fill in the blank, official, is stupid. And half of it is grandstanding. They get up there, they give a speech, and they say yes or no. Okay, my time's expired. It is a complete waste of time for everybody.
But why couldn't he simply just explain why Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, was transported to a minimum security facility? These are just questions that need answers.
Well, he could do a lot of things, but like I say, it's theater, not governance. These people are not. This isn't what they're doing.
But I'll just say, to back up to Lindsay's point, the director of the FBI is not also the head of the Bureau of Prisons, right? To your point, Chris, these are stupid questions and stupid responses to some degree, because you're asking the wrong person the wrong question because you want a clip to send out on YouTube to all of your supporters and say, look, I held this guy accountable.
You all held up to your titles. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still on the other side of the break. Air Force One and a close call. We'll play you the sound. Our parent company owns NewsNation, announcing that the company's ABC affiliates will preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's show. Next are saying they strongly object to recent comments made by Kimmel concerning the killing of Charlie Kirk, and will replace the show with other programming in its ABC-affiliated markets. There are also reports tonight that ABC is pulling the show indefinitely. Time for my take tonight before we head out. Air Force One. This was the arrival in the UK just a little while ago, the other day, where President Trump met with King Charles earlier this evening. And, you know, Air Force One, as it flew off out there to the UK, we are now learning of an incident in the skies here at home.
Pay attention, Spirit 1300, turn 20 degrees right. Spirit 1300, turn 20 degrees right now. Spirit Wings 1300, turn 20 degrees right immediately. Spirit 1300, traffic's off your left wing by 8 miles, 747. I'm sure you can see who it is. I got to talk to you twice every time. Spirit 1300, Boston 134.0. Pay attention, get off the iPad.
It's serious. The plane got too close there. A little shocking to hear, but that last part also gave me a little bit of a chuckle. Pay attention, get off the iPad. We have no idea how distracted the airline pilot was, if at all, who was at fault, if at all, and we definitely don't know if the pilot was on an iPad. But I thought to myself, wouldn't shock me if that air traffic controller has kids, because get off the iPad is the snap out of it line for any parent in 2025. So I leave you with this thought tonight. You never know who's in front of you or what you're being distracted from. Homework, a grandparent telling a story, or, in this case, as it happened, Air Force One. I thank you for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.